Hello and welcome to Quick Take TA here on Landy's Crypto Corner. Today is May 9th, 2024, and we're looking at Bitcoin on the daily chart here. Now, to follow up with our last video, which was a recorded video on Tuesday, I had spoken about exactly what we're seeing play out now, or has the potential to play out now. It's not fully confirmed yet, but if Bitcoin can close back above, we're going to call it this basis band and around 63,200 or so, then Bitcoin would put in a daily low. Now, you may recall if you watched last video, I had mentioned that Bitcoin really needs to throw some bullish divergence, and you'd rather see it come from within the range somewhere around these lows. Now, there was only one low that actually qualified for where Bitcoin was trading at, and that was this low over here coming in from the 17th into the 18th of April. Now, Bitcoin has the potential. It's put in a swing low, but it needs to lock in that swing low by putting in a closing low. It can do that today, potentially tomorrow, if it can stay above the current swing low. And then, of course, get above around 63. It's actually technically 63,161 there. I would want to see it closing around 63,200 or so. Now, that would throw some regular bullish divergence from within the range. That would also start to paint the picture that possibly Bitcoin could begin to start changing trend on any moves past or any closures past that 65.5 area. Of course, if it did start closing back above there, we can see the daily upper second standard deviation of the Bollinger Bands, or the level of volatility level that I'd be interested in, would be the very next high that Bitcoin does need to take out, of course, at around 67,200 to 300 above there, and I'd be looking back up to $69,000 to $70,000 up here by the prior cycle high. And then, of course, above there, the highs and higher. Now, if Bitcoin does come back down, because it has not closed above the daily basis band just yet, we did see one close open in this particular move down that got above it, but that was a rejection. We've gotten another close open on this other lower high. That was a rejection at the upper first. And then we need to see it actually close above it and then regain that upper first. Now, that would be the equivalent of taking out this last high. And when you have a higher low and then you break the downtrend, then you are beginning a new trend. Now, of course, we would still want to see higher highs and higher lows from there in order to go test 67,200 to that $69,000. But I think you get what I'm getting at there. If Bitcoin does come back down and take out this low, it's pretty simple at 60,600. Then I'd be looking at around this lower second standard deviation coming in around $59,000 to that March 2021 monthly and quarterly close. And of course, below there, right back to the lows and possibly lower. Of course, if that 56,500 area is dropped, many of you already know that I'm looking down to this September of 2021 weekly swing high that Bitcoin paused at over here in January into February. Actually, that was February. That was mid-February even. So that $63,000 weekly from 2021, 53. Man, I'm having one of those days. $53,000. That is that was prior resistance. I would be looking for that area to get tested as support down all the way down to the weekly close opens here coming in from August and December of 2021 that Bitcoin consolidated at before putting in the new all-time highs here. So somewhere roughly between 50 and 53. Now, if Bitcoin can dig itself out here, I don't necessarily think that would be in the cards for the weekend. We have what? We've got one more trading day. This is our Friday candle. I would want to see Friday at least attempt to set a low here, a close above 63 that came in yesterday is encouraging, but I do want to see not just a swing low but a closing low set. So at minimum, you look for those three candle lows. You're going to get a lot of indicators, even mine, that is going to show that as a low set. I need to see the low set on a closing basis for me personally. One good positive thing here is that you are getting that little bit of an inverted head and shoulders on RSI. I actually believe that they're a little bit more playable in terms of hit rate than actual chart price patterns. So in this case, looking all right. If it does head back down to the bearish control zone, though, that's looking at the lows, $58,000 or so. That'd be the equivalent of running the lower low down there. So Bitcoin has a chance. to possibly play out some of the scenarios that we've talked about, and probably the more preferable of those scenarios for most, and that is get some bullish divergence within the range. It could even push up further and like do a consolidation and then start throwing bullish divergence from some of these other lows, but it needs to, minimum start pushing up above $65,000. Now, there were as I draw out my sentence there to cover for the fact that I forgot what I was going to do. There we go, 2-day. We had a 2-day closure coming into today, so we have a new 2-day candle. Nice bounce off of the monthly here from October. And we spoke about this. The 2-day didn't really set a closing high, but it did set a swing high. You will see this set as a closing high. The way that I do highs in terms of closing highs are going to be a little bit different. That is one of the reasons why I differentiate between them. In this case, Bitcoin above 65.5, looking good. To really start breaking this downtrend, you want to see it breaking above that 67,200 to 300 still. And then we are looking back to that. That of course is the upper first standard deviation of the Bollinger Bands. Then we're looking back to $69,000 to around 70, and then the highs again by the upper second here, looking fairly good. Now I did mention this, that we did see a turn up in momentum here. That pivot is now 58,440, so about 58.5. So we do have a momentum shift, if I can actually spit out these words correctly today. And if it's going to head up, it's testing around the midline, scale midline at around that 63 to 63,500 area. If it does head up, bullish control zone is right by the highs here. So that would be your bullish control zone or edge of the bullish control zone up there at about the 62 read. If it does head down, bearish control zone, we're looking at mid 50s, basically running the lows again. It would be the edge of the bearish control zone down here and possibly lower. So keep that in mind with the 2-day. Looking good, bouncing off support. Maybe it paints an inverted head and shoulders. Everybody gets super excited for the breakout back to like 70 to 73. So that could be in the cards, maybe a little bit higher if it were to play out like that. I don't think this is going to play like a traditional pattern play. I would be searching for the volatility play on this one. I think a lot of people are going to be looking for a breakout when it's not ready. In fact, the 3-day, which is going to be closing with not today's candle, so not as relevant, but 3-day, you're going to see that overhead resistance coming in around $1,000 short of its lower high, which is that 67,200 to 300. I'd be way more encouraged if Bitcoin can not only take out that 65.5, but if it takes out 67.2 to 3 in like one swipe, one candle or one or two candles, one right after another, would look pretty damn good. Now, follow up on the 4-day. Now, this still has not closed. This is going to close on Saturday, but I do want you to note that the lower first has been hit again, and that occurred since we last spoke. So 5-day did get its close open, and you can see that the 5-day has begun to get this deeper compression. So I mentioned on some of the other time frames, I don't think I brought up a 5-day because it wasn't really relevant at the time, but we can see we had this beautiful expansion. And now we're starting to see the Bollinger Band swoop down from the top side and swoop up from underside of price here because we are in a compressive phase, also denoted by BBWP down in the corner. It's kind of tangled in that mess of support and resistance down there, but it says it's almost 4% under an 8.8. So essentially when it's red, that means that Bitcoin's in a cool down phase, or prices volatility is in a cool down phase. And this is now being reflected with the bands quickly starting to close in on price. And in this case, the lower first standard deviation is right by the current wick low. If Bitcoin were to start trending down from the basis and especially closing in the next 5 days, then we would be looking down to our supports here, 61,350 to 58.8, and then down to the lower first from a volatility standpoint. When in a compressive phase, you can tag both sides, or you see price tagging both sides. I don't know if you are directly tagging them, but maybe you feel like your price. In this case, you're looking at that 56,500 or so to the upside above the basis band. Then you're looking at it having even a general bias of this upside resistance now overhead. That's $65,000 to $69,000, almost $70,000 by the upper first. Above there, slightly above the all-time high there, coming in at around $75,000 to $76,000. So Something to be aware of with this is it is pressured down. We are seeing a cool down. I don't think this is ready to move anytime soon because it is a compression. So we could see local moves. And we could even see moves down, that look really, really bad that are still setting up for mean reversion, or in the context of trend would be mean reversion. And that'd be around the $50,000 to $53,000 range by the lower second. It's coming in, 49,500, but 50 to 53, close enough with that $500 difference there. And it could even spike up during a compression phase as long as it's not breaking down below there and getting expansion, of course, below 50,000, in which case there's support right below at 47.7 to 45.5. Not my first take on price until, we haven't even seen it really break down on a close below 58.8, but to the upside, it could even spike like $76,000 and not do much, or wick through to 76 to 7 or 75 to 78, which is one of our targets as well, and not do much for expansion. So meaning that price can still just kind of hang out and range around a little bit. Yes, you get markups and markdowns, but in terms of overall expansion and contraction for price volatility, not doing too much. And I think that's going to do it for today. One thing that I do want to make sure that I highlight here is the 12-hour is also beginning to show some potential here. We have some bullish divergence forming. Yes, this is a couple drives of bullish divergence now that are confirmed, and that's enough to pop things up. Now, what we need to see is that continuation on the 12-hour, and this is where I looked at the 12-hour to kind of inform what's going to happen on the daily next. If the 12-hour can, of course, start breaking above that 65.5, we're looking at, a trend shift on the 12-hour. That, of course, would be the same trend shift on the daily here. So the 12-hour giving us a little bit of a early indicator if we do see it trading and closing above there in the next 12-hour candle. And then, of course, to the downside, you can see that it would be that low 60,600. The lower first down here is coming in at just under there, just under $60,000, coming in at 59.5 to 6. Anywhere below there, this is looking to run the support to the lows. Basically, your $59,000 to the actual low side closing structure, coming in at 57.5 to 58K or so. Below there, you're looking to the lows and lower, down to that $55,000 area. If it does start to close above the upper first, you can look to that. You can get an early indication that volatility is from a volatility standpoint, starting to expand or slightly expand to the upside. And that is coming in at around 63,800. That's, basically this low over here. Now, if it were to start closing above the $65,000, you can see that the upper second standard deviation is right around this swing high at 65.5. So you do need to see closures above there that also can get above that upper second standard deviation for meaningful expansion. When looking at momentum, it is pointed to the downside right now, but any closure above that 67,800 or so would start to shift that back around in a bullish reset manner. So it is in the bullish control zone currently. All right, that's going to do it for today. I will be back at you tomorrow with a live stream. I do apologize about the mess of thoughts and words today, but hopefully I'll be back on track tomorrow. And you have a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening, no matter where you are in the world. Please trade safe. And of course, as always, stay safe. With all of that said, Landy out.